up, James? How was your week, man?
All right, man. Did I jump in too early?
Listen, what do I know, man?
It say entering the studio would not automatically start the broadcast. So I'm thinking I'm just jumping in.
So what options do they give you? Can you hear me? You hear me?
I didn't. You had just buffered out for the whatever you just said. But I can hear you now.
Oh, you can hear me now?
Yeah.
All right, don't scare me, man. Because I checked my mic before everything started. My notes. I had to organize my notes, man. I need a secretary.
Man, I know. I need a chauffeur, man. Tired of driving.
That's Uber.
Man, look. Right. If I'm gonna have to pay somebody, I'm gonna get in what I want to get in.
I suppose. I hear you. Anyway, you said your week was just all right, man.
It was short, I had Monday off, but I still end up.
It was short. We had an extra day. Memorial Day.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I didn't go to work Monday. I didn't work Monday, so I just did these 4 days. But you know what these bastards doing? They're making us work tomorrow.
On Saturday? Why?
Yeah, because they down production, so they say. So I was just like, look, y'all could have just made us work Monday and paid us double time, man.
Oh yeah, they ducking that time and a half for holiday pay.
See what I'm saying?
I saw a trend that I hadn't seen before, and I'm not saying it didn't happen, but people have been saying it's inappropriate to say Happy Memorial Day. Have you seen that trend?
No, I haven't seen that.
Because Memorial Day is a day of reverence for people who have lost their lives, so it's not supposed to be a happy day. It's supposed to be a solemn day of reflection where you pay your respect and you reflect on the sacrifices of others that have improved your life, all that, right?
Yeah.
And I think they stole that from me because that was my point about Juneteenth.
Yeah, I remember that.
Because it was always my position, like, how are we celebrating Africans being delayed freedom? And like I said, I understand the Africans who were told, hey, you guys are emancipated well after the Civil War had ended. I could see them celebrating, but for we who are descendants of that atrocity, there's nothing for us to celebrate. That's a day of outrage, if not a day of solemn reflection, at least.
Man, for sure. And then they create this goof ass flag and all of these memorabilia behind that shit, man. Are you cool with that?
No.
They take the liberation colors, the black, red, and green, and then transpose that shit onto an American flag. Man, I hate that shit.
Yeah, well, I'm with you.
You got me with all this hate, man. You know what I'm saying? Until I met you, I was a happy-go-lucky dude.
You were blissful. You were blissful.
I was coming up out my bliss though, man. That's how you came, you know what I'm saying, across my algorithm, because I was just talking all kind of greasy shit. You know what I'm saying? And that's how you popped up. I was tired. I was tired of all the bullshit, man.
Back when the algorithm used to work. Because it's going to be a short show anyway. So I think they're going to delete this show, if not delete this whole page behind this topic of white genocide. And Trump a few weeks ago had some refugees come to America. And some white South African refugees because it was like, how many of them was it? 52 of them?
It was 50-something, 57 I heard, 57, 59.
57 white folks. And you know what I have to really reflect on for these white people, these 57 people who are new to America? They're going to be miserable in the United States.
Yeah, because it's not the same situation they just left.
Well, here's the reality though. Most of the United States, I don't know. Some of y'all get in places and y'all love where y'all live. I'm not trying to diss where nobody live, but the United States way of life, as defined by Trump and by Obama, because I remember there were famous statements about the American way of life is not negotiable. So you had people from Obama, Biden, most of the presidents would talk about when there was George Bush and his vice president Dick Cheney. There was a lot of rhetoric during the so-called war on terror about the American way of life is not negotiable. And they said that people were attacking, the terrorists were attacking America because of they hate our way of life. They hate our freedoms. And we're not going to apologize and we're not going to compromise how we live. But what you'll notice in that rhetoric that went on for 2 decades is they never gave specifics. They never really said what exactly is the American way of life. You know, they would say superficial, non-specific shit like we love our freedom. You know, America's proud America, and I would love America. But you notice how none of these politicians ever, you very seldom find anybody say in detail, define what the American way of life is, or give specific examples of the American way of life that makes it unique or distinct from the way of life anywhere else in the world. Or except they say we're the most powerful country, we're the richest country. But how does that translate into the average American's life?
I think I heard something the other day. It's this comedian, this white dude. I'm just filing through social media, and this white comedian said, "What makes America so great and the greatest country in the world is that he was a DF student, and." he was a failing student. He's a bad student, and he managed to have an audience full of people paying to watch him tell jokes. He said that's the beauty of America, where you could be a failing student and make some of yourself in America still.
Who was
no
that?
education?
Who said that?
I don't know, man. Some white dude, some white comedian. I be wanting to send shit all the time, but I don't be wanting to, you know what I'm saying, just flood the, but I hear stupid shit like this all the time.
Well, but even that, because the American way of life, like how we eat, how we travel, where do we dwell and how do we dwell in our spaces? What is the quality of our food, our water, the quality of our education, our healthcare? They've got these things they call indexes, you know, determining like what really makes for a good life.
Mm.
What does the average human being need to live a good life?
Money.
And then they define what these things are and they create these charts and shit. And then they pretty much lay it out. And every time the United States scores very low. They have like the happiness index, the wellness index, the life expectancy, the quality of relationships, the stability of relationships, the economic stability. The United States way of life is actually quite miserable for the average American. You know, white, Protestant, you know, cisgendered, heterosexual, and it's very evident of how people behave and lash out in society. So I was just thinking about I had one homeboy that was really outraged. Shout out to Rip. And he was like just hollering at me like, man, he's bringing these Afrikaans, he's bringing these white people, it's a slap in the face, calling these people refugees and just going off. And I didn't really get mad because I know those white racists are in for a very rude awakening, because the quality of life in the United States, by all metrics, and these metrics are done by everything psychologists, economists, sociologists, all the people who, you know, study and just look at the data. They look at the just the data and turn the data into some cohesive and comprehensive analysis. So, first of all, these white South Africans, they're not going to be able to live in the best places of America, the places of America that have some of the highest quality education, the best quality public transit, the best quality housing. They're not going to be able to live in those spaces.
You mean Elon is not finna subsidize these people's lives while they here? They're not gonna live off his dime?
I haven't seen where he's made any promises to them. And Elon just said he ain't even making contributions, political contributions. He's turning off the spigot. So
Man,
he's not, because these white people are props. They're tools, they're puppets. They were used, and I'm pretty sure Trump has already forgotten about them. So they're going to be living in rural America. They're going to be living in either southern or rural America, because if they live anywhere else, people don't want them. Because number one, they're already overt, vicious, racist.
And they farmers though, right? So okay, so that makes sense.
So they're going to go take and get some of those agricultural jobs, which is the worst job in the United States. The myth of the farmer and his livestock, and he walks out there in his overalls. Farming in the United States is a mechanized industry. It's a mechanized industry. And you'll find a lot of people that come here from white countries, Western countries, or Western cultures find that this is the worst of the worst. Like when the white people who came to invade the United States and colonize the United States, they were literally the worst of the worst. Like Australia, the white people that left Europe to colonize the world were the people other Europeans are like, you too smelly and too fanatical for white folks. You don't send your best. Like, let's say you have a house full of kids, right? And there's a mission on the other side of town that they might not come back from. You gonna send your favorite child? Which child you gonna send the child to give you the most headaches? So most of the people that settled. I hate the word settler. I hate that term. That's probably one of the worst terms. It's worse than privilege. I hate the term privilege. But anyway, all that to
what
say,
should it be besides settler colonialism? What should it be there?
Invaders. They're invaders. What did they settle? Did they settle the ecosystem? Name a place where white people colonized, where the environment is better than it was. The ecosystem is better than it was before they came. Name a place where white folks colonized, where hell, the standard quality of life and culture and human relations is better once they arrived. See, we got some dishonesty in the chat.
I can't think of any.
I already know which of my kids I'd send. If there was a new planet and they were like, we need some people to come settle this new planet, I already know which son I'd send and which one I'd be like, you hang back here.
Well, I only got one son, so ain't nobody going.
You ain't sending him.
I ain't sending him. Ain't nobody going nowhere.
Yeah, okay. All right. But you get my point I'm trying to make, that the white folks that we have to deal with are not the best Europe had to offer. That's all I'm saying.
Wow, for sure.
If you're in the cave in the Caucasus Mountain, if you sitting huddled around the fire in the cave in the Caucasus Mountain, and they hear a roar outside the cave, they generally didn't send the best, brightest, most, best attitude, best disposition, least violent person out to check the roar. They
still on display today. Still on display in current time.
I'm saying, and these white folks out here, we got the worst of the worst, pretending that they are the most supreme. It's it's an interesting thing. And the noblemen and the kings didn't go either, because it was a conflict. Often, conquest wars of conquest. You ain't got the people of noble birth on the front lines generally. But all that to say, but I missed my point because you want to lie to your kids because you think your kids might see this. Where were we, man? Before you, your kids ain't gonna watch it. Mine's don't. But if they do see this, they know who they are and they know why they are and they know why. They know why I would make the decision. So,
but see, you got two to choose from. I don't. So I said you got two to choose from. I don't.
So you're like, how many daughters you got?
So I'm safe. I'm safe on that.
How many daughters you got?
I got 2.
Okay, so now you got to replace. I already know who's going. You know who's going. I know who's going. If you don't want to tell the internet, that's fine. I respect that. Like, can we move on?
Yeah, we can move on, man. Because
I'm just saying, those white folks who came here, it is offensive. It is a slap in the face to true refugees. It is a slap in the face of people who are truly worthy to seek the relief from hardships, from natural disaster, from tyranny, the tired, the hungry, huddled masses, the promise of the Statue of Liberty. There are many people who are worthy and have legitimate refugee status. But to bring white people from former apartheid South Africa here and to give them the label refugees is a lie. They don't fit the status of refugees. They are not victims. They are victimizers. They are the predatory group of people. White people make up less than 5% of the South African population and own over 80% of the land and wealth. There was no wealth transfer. When Mandela came to take power, he had made a promise that there would be no land transfer, no wealth transfer. He made no efforts to do that. You know, when Mandela got into power, the 2 first things he did was surrender the nuke and legalize gay marriage. There was no type of retribution. South Africa had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission headed by Desmond Tutu. And the Truth and Reconciliation Commission said, hey, we're going to set up this bureau. And if you come before this commission, and you acknowledge your crimes, you confess your crimes, you will be absolved. So it was a nationwide confessional because Bishop, he was a Catholic bishop. One of the worst, most treasonous Africans in history is Bishop Desmond Tutu. May he rot in heaven. So in the European Catholic heaven. And so all these white people came before and said, yes, there was an activist in this town in the Bantustan, and we went and we tied him up and we put hot coals on his genitals and we broke his bones in several places and we tortured his family in front of him. And we did all these horrible things to this man because he spoke up for his people's dignity and freedom. We tortured him, we maimed him, we killed this person, we did that. And the Truth and Reconciliation, the commission said gavel. They hit the gavel on the thing and said, you are absolved. You've confessed your crimes and you are absolved. And then they went to the black South Africans, the Nkantas, the Zulus, and said to them, now black people, you have to come and confess your crimes against the white folks because you committed crimes in your fight for freedom. So the violence, the murder, the sabotage, the vandalism, all that you've committed, and they brought black people had to come who were fighting for their freedom, had to come that's like bringing Nat Turner and putting Nat Turner and Andrew Jackson and saying, you both did crimes.
As
Andrew
if they
Jackson
was both even, as if
killed
both
Africans and killed Native Americans, and Nat Turner, you killed slave masters. You're both killers, and you both must confess your crime. And Winnie Mandela was like, you're going to have to lock me up. I ain't coming to confess. I committed no crimes. Everything I did was for my people's liberation and fully justified.
Right on, Winnie, goddammit. That's what I'm talking about.
So that's where these people are coming from. These are the people that Trump is bringing over here, who were able to keep their land, keep their wealth, and face no legal or political retribution for decades of atrocities. Ongoing atrocities, by the way. They're still committing acts of racialized violence against the black majority in South Africa. And so they're here now. And they're going to be shopping at Walmart and living in the suburbs and trying to live a typical white American life. And the typical white American life is a nightmarish hellish life. You're muted. You're muted. James, you're muted. I can't hear you. Okay. All right. Anyway. So I can, to be honest, as much as I accept that this is racist, offensive, inappropriate, illegitimate, I can think of no better we can't hear you. I can think of no better punishment for a white South African than to come to America and live as your typical white racist American. You lost James. Let's just pray for his return. James will rise again. I can think of no better punishment, personally. So we ain't got to protest. This is one of those injustices that will self-correct. And if you don't believe me, y'all got white friends. Go hang out with them. Go spend a week. Go out to their suburbs. Not your liberal progressive white friends. Not the ones that live in the city and drink lattes and pumpkin spice and shit. Not them white, because those white people make up the minority of whites. The liberal, progressive, left-wing, communist, anarcho white folks. Don't go to the atypical white folks. Go find you an average white friend that's Christian, patriotic, maybe a veteran, living in the suburbs or ex-burbs, predominantly white everything, predominantly white school, predominantly white church, predominantly white community, predominantly white bread, predominantly white whites. Go get you an authentic white American and just kick it with them for a couple of weeks. And you'll be like, God damn, these the people we wanted equality with? Yes, the parents of your liberal white friends. And you'll be like, God damn, I see why you gentrifying. I see why you trying to move into every hood, ghetto, barrio, while these white youth are trying to move into every black and non-white space in every major city, in every ghetto and hood in America.
Man.
What happened, James?
So what did I miss? Man, look, bro, I don't even know. I got unlimited data. I don't know why my phone freezing up. I don't got a router. It's telling me get close to my router, which don't make sense to me. So, but I am on my phone, so I don't know, man. You know what I'm saying? But look, I did have a point to raise. That
okay.
The current South African president was he was under Mandela. He was a student, or he was raised under Mandela.
Who?
Ramaphosa.
Okay.
The South African president, and I heard the man got like $700 million.
Yeah.
Mandela,
don't tell me nothing about. We knew back in the 90s, Mandela was a sellout, and they had that big parade for Nelly Mandela in New York, and I used to, be heavily in the Free Mandela movement. 1990, 89, 90, 91, 92. And we protest. We were boycotting Coca-Cola. We went, what's that one singer's name that's trying to be black now? Millie Jackson?
No, not Millie Jackson.
Yeah.
Millie Jackson, old, man. She might even be dead.
Oh, there was a whole list. The cultural boycott of Africa. There was a whole list. Millie Jackson was on there. She went there. Who's the other lady that just made a statement about blacks and R&B?
How long ago was this?
Back in the 80s.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Millie Jackson, yeah, okay. Yeah.
That's when the Free South Africa movement in the late 80s and early 90s is when I was part of that movement. And we were really, calling out Millie Jackson and all the black people who went to Stephanie Mills. Yes, her too. Thank you, Jamal. Stephanie Mills. Del Jones got arrested because Stephanie Mills was trying to do a concert in Philly right after her tour of apartheid South Africa. And Del Jones and some of his guys went and blocked the doors, literally chained themselves up in front of the concert venue. It's like, ain't nobody getting in here. We're not going to support her because Stephanie Mills went and performed in apartheid South Africa. And the cops came with billy clubs. And if you know anything about the Philadelphia PD, these are the guys that locked up and framed Mumia. So anyway,
and blew up the move with Korea.
Yeah, and almost in less than 3 to 4 months after Nelly Mandela's release, all of the major movers within the anti-apartheid boycott and South African liberation struggles here in the West were like, oh shit, they done did something to Mandela. His first couple of tours and his first couple of speeches, people were kind of confident because he went to break bread with Fidel Castro, and the U.S. State Department says you cannot go and acknowledge Castro because he's a communist and he supports communism. And Mandela says, for the European and American governments, you're not going to tell me who I can be friends with and who I can speak to. And the Cuban Revolution and the Cuban revolutionaries have supported the anti-apartheid movement. And so we were like, okay, he's come out of jail after 30 years. He's going to run for president. That's weird, but okay. But he's standing on business. But then as he started to maneuver, started to make ties, started to advocate and support the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, we knew right then and there, oh, this Mandela shit is fucked up. And Mandela was not released to spark a revolution. He was released to end a revolution, to
quell
stop.
Right.
And he didn't touch land reform. He didn't touch reparations. He didn't touch. And then the Black South African government continued the same extractive economy of extracting South Africa's natural resources and sending them abroad to be processed, refined. And then they did create a buffer class of affluent Black South Africans, a middle class Black South Africans, a political affluent class to serve as a buffer between the Black masses. And they would do little shit like, oh, you'll still live in the shanties, you'll still live in the slums, but we'll make sure we'll wire it up with electricity. So you'll get internet and service. One of the wealthiest countries on the African continent, some of the wealthiest natural resources on the continent, and still poverty. But anyway, not to relive all that because we're trying to deal with white genocide. But now
that was some good context though provided though. We needed that context.
Thank you. You didn't have your ANC medallion back in the 90s?
Yeah, man. I got a picture of me with my African medallion on, man. I got to find it so I can show it to you. But I was see it had my X hat on and everything, man. We were rallied around and we got played. I was ready to stick it to the man. But there's a lot of Black folks who, when Mandela was released, ran out and ran in the streets and rallied and celebrated Mandela, but they were not there. They didn't support the boycotts. They didn't hold the dozens of Negroes. If I have to start naming names about all the Black people it's no different than the Black folks who are supporting Israel now. Frank Sinatra, a lot of white celebrities. Frank Sinatra went over there during apartheid. Same thing. But anyway, white genocide. Here's the thing but you never heard about the term white genocide? You were asking me. I mean, I've heard about the people say, because like that video I sent you the other day with the Trump talking about Jesus would be actually his papers and came back. Like these silly people. But I've heard people say that they've heard people say that white folks would be scared that black people would do the same thing to them if they ever got into power and stuff like that. But I mean, it's just so it don't like it sound like it just sound goofy, man. It do.
Well, here's the thing though. This is some things we should point out because I know a lot of Donald Trump and Elon Musk are promoting the white genocide myth. But the white genocide myth has been a dialogue. Can y'all hear that yelling? I don't think the mic is picking it up. My granddaughter
I don't hear it.
Is having herself a party. She's having herself a little late evening.
Oh, go ahead, enjoy yourself, baby girl.
Hooping and hollering. Y'all did hear her? But
that's what Brittany said.
One, and she's vocalizing, so she just like everything is like up here. And then when you go, and she's like, I wish you would. But anyway, white genocide has been a trope in the undercurrent of white domination and racism for decades. White people have been afraid of genetic annihilation through immigration of non-whites, through interbreeding, as they call it, with non-whites, through the deliberate extermination of non-whites. And there's also an element within the white nationalist, white right, overt racist movements where they believe that the white governments of the world want to eliminate the white masses. Because if you read books like Behold a Pale Horse, Conspirators' Hierarchy, which are all shitty books. I hate how prominent those books, Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, all these, Behold a Pale Horse, which is the dumbest fucking book. But if you read the conspiratorial books, there's also saying that the reason why the white elites want to get rid of the white masses is and replace them with Asians, with Africans, Aboriginal people is because white people have an instinctive natural love of freedom. And that the average white man is braver, more intelligent, and more principled than the average non-white man. So the white elites are like, we have to replace the white worker with the Asian, with the African, with the native, because they're more docile and less intelligent. So we can fool them, we can trick them, and we can dominate them, and they don't have the intelligence or coordination to overthrow us. And they have this myth that all freedom that exists in the world is a byproduct of Western democracy. And Western democracy was created through the blood, sweat, and toil of the triumphant Christian white man. So this is a very labored reality that the vast majority, all white people are familiar with it. And I believe that the majority of white people adhere to this understanding. Even those who assert that they are not racist will say, well, I'm not racist, but it's not racist to acknowledge that the sky is blue. It's not racist to acknowledge that water is wet. So it's not racist to understand that white people have a special status and standing and have a special ability that sets us apart and even above other races, where they claim that's not even a racist position. That's a scientific proven fact.
So, Diallo, can you add to the fact that their birth rates is low? Is that a fact also? That their birth rate is not keeping up with their
right. Yes. In all Western countries, I don't think that in all Western countries that European birth rate is negative or declining, negative or has plateaued, meaning that the number of births that white women are having does not meet the rate of replacement or replenishment. So their overall population is going down because white women are not wanting to have children with white men. And another thing that hampers them is that white people have a very limited definition of what white is. with their concept of purity, because they decided that if a white person has offsprings with anything other than a white person, then that offspring can't be classified as white. And at the same time, we look at these ball chasers, these professional ball chasers and stuff, and see they all got a preference on their arm, but white men date outside their race at a higher rate than any other population of men that have been subjected to the study or observation. And those people don't get to be white. So because they have defined white in extremely limited terms of who qualifies to be white or what white is, they have a limited definition, but then when you try to get them to define it, they don't really have a clear or fixed definition of what white is. They'll say it's a culture, it's genetic, it's biological, it's so it's a mess. So not only do you have something that is in decline, you have something that is not just declining in real material numbers, it's also declining in terms of comprehension and understanding. So yes, but a simple decline in numbers does not mean that that's a genocide. Numbers and populations can decline for a myriad of reasons. One of the best ways to reduce birth rates is to give opportunity and education to women. Every system in society that has granted any level, and it doesn't even have to be complete equality, but any level of social mobility, education, and opportunity offered to women in general, you'll see a marked decrease in birth rates. That's why in all of these white genocide movements, one of the things they want to do is to remove opportunities for women, not just to take away their right to abortion, but in the right-wing spaces, they want to take away women's suffrage, the right to women to vote. They want to limit women's capacity and opportunities for work. They want to limit women's capacity and opportunities for education, because that historically has demonstrated that when women are confined to that thing, they have higher rates of birth.
So they want to keep them barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Huh?
Mm-hmm. And too ignorant, too uneducated to even comprehend that they're being used as. But I mean, the religions and spiritual systems that even Black people adhere to define women as breeding stock. They want women to be breeding stock. Living, walking human incubators. And unfortunately, there are a lot of women, white and non-white, who see that as a divine obligation. So anyway, white people's concept of genocide. Have you heard of the 14 words?
What, the 1488? Some shit like that?
No, it's this statement that, like, if you see a white dude with the number 14,
or they were sending that lady $1,488 or $14.88. It means It means it has some type of white supremacy.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, right. The 88 is Heil Hitler. So 1488, they pretend like it's a year, but 14 is this sentence, right? I'll read it to you. And it was coined by this man named David Lane, who is the head and founder of the Order, which is a white. I don't like saying the word supremacist, but that's what he called it. They're not white supremacists; they're white aggressors. So I'm gonna just call it what it is. He's a white aggressor, and he founded this white aggressor organization called the Order back in 2007. And in pretty much their mission statement, it's 14-word mission statement. So it says, we must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children. So that is the obligation and mission of every white man. And any white man that does not make this his core identity and his core mission is a traitor to the white race. We must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children. That's 1488, 1488. So it's, when they put the 88 there, that's H on the alphabet, the A for Heil Hitler. HH. And, you know, when you look at this, you'll be like, the average non-insane person, like, okay, you want to secure a future for your children. But they don't see the threat to their children as being nuclear waste or nuclear war, pollution, climate change. They deny climate change. And they don't even believe, because the order is a Christian white aggressor, they believe that the end of the world will come when God brings about his ultimate judgment. So they have to survive unto judgment day. And so when we look at, if you as a sane person says, well, the children and the future, you want a progressive economy that justly distributes the resources to the people, wants to give every child health care, including dental and eye, want to give every child an adequate education and an honest, truthful education about the past. You know, you want to give every child an opportunity to explore, and all these things that you would think, well, these are the things that would give white children and any child a better chance at survival. These motherfuckers are like, no. What secures the future for white children is the expulsion of non-white children and the people who make them, their parents, expulsion, isolation, and being well armed and prepared to wipe anybody else out and to dominate and take as much of the world's resources and hoard the world's resources. So it is so warped. And you can even demonstrate to these 1488 individuals, hey, these are the things that are scientifically demonstrated to be a threat to your child's future, and they reject that. So they advocate for all the things that will harm their children. That's the insanity. They are psychopaths. And they, in the effect to stop what they falsely call white genocide, they are accelerating their own extinction and blaming us.
Which is the delusional part. Like,
psychopathic. Yeah.
This shit is so annoying, man. Like, they can't be reasoned with. Like, there's no.
No, they can't.
And that's the annoying part.
Whenever white people, this is why I call it psychological projection. Psychological projection is when you take the worst thing about yourself and put it on someone else, right? So, you know, I heard about these guys. I'm never, you know, but I heard there are some men out there that got wandering eyes that have a multitude of women in all kind of places. Such men I've heard about, right? And these wandering eye men, you'll find that most men that got holes in different area codes, they're always suspicious and jealous of their women. So you got a man that will come home to his wife after leaving his girlfriend's house, and he's looking at her like, where you been? You'll find that two-timing men are very suspicious, very insecure, and are very prone to thinking that their woman is out. They project that onto their women. You know, I don't know if you know, you ever known
the manosphere.
You ever known like a sneaky, thiefy dude? If you ever been around a thief, they always think somebody's trying to get over on them and take their shit. So when people have characteristics or realities about themselves that they don't come to terms with and they don't like, they project that onto others. It's called an eco defense mechanism or a psycho defense mechanism to allow them to be in this very negative space, but not to allow that negative space to consume or define them. So when white people start screaming about genocide, that means white people are on the verge of accelerating and intensifying genocide. Remember when white folks when the stereotype of a drug addict was a black man, a crackhead, and white folks were making those movies. You ever heard of Losing Isaiah?
Yeah, but I never saw it.
Yeah, well, back in the 80s and 90s, the trope was black folks are consuming all the drugs and selling all the drugs. When you think of a drug dealer, it was a black man in the inner city was the drug dealer. And then they hired Ice Coon and Snoop Coon and niggas with audacity, NWA. They hired all these race traders to make music to confirm their stereotype of black folks. And they promoted that all over the world. And we bought it and danced and shook our ass to it too. Right? And
I'm number one guilty party. I'm number one suspect.
Shame. But yeah, hey, shit was banging. I was 12. What do you want from me? I'm a victim. My conditioning was conditioned. But at the very time that white folks were like, the drug epidemic in the inner cities, and they had black folks believing that poor black people, not even poor black people, less than 1% of the poor black population was buying enough drugs, selling and buying enough drugs to fuel $1 trillion global drug trade. If every single black person in America was a hardcore addict and spent 100% of the money they made, we make so little money. Black people in the United States hold less than 1% of the total wealth of this nation. We hold in the 80s, such a small fraction of the wealth that they had us believing that people that were stealing their grandma's VCRs and their auntie's microwaves were fueling. But the reality is, when the research came out, when the facts were revealed, white people were consuming drugs at 10 times the capacity of blacks. The average drug addict was employed, white, suburban, and didn't have a jail record. It's just that they were enforcing drug prohibition in the ghetto and turning a blind eye to drug consumption in the suburbs. But they really both of my parents are addicts. Right? And they didn't make enough money for fucking Pablo Escobar to be a multi-billionaire. I mean, it just wasn't enough money in the ghetto. You know, and the drug dealers in the hood, they might have had a gold chain, Jordans, and a car, but that's it.
Yeah.
The white drug dealers had helicopters, yachts, and they built a whole fucking city of Miami. They were building skyscrapers when nickel and dime drug dealers couldn't even give them their mamas enough money to pay rent in the projects. But I digress. All I'm saying all that to say is, when white people accuse us of something, being drug addicts, being thugs and murderers and criminals and thieves, accuse us of being lazy and refusing to work, accuse us black men of not being good fathers, that's a confession. Every accusation they made against us as a people, every stereotype they burdened us with was a confession. So if they were the ones abusing and abandoning their kids and turned black men into deadbeats, if they were the ones going across robbing and stealing and colonizing the world, but they turned us into the gangsters fighting over hoods. So when they say, well, we're being genocide. So if they're crying about them being victims of genocide, if we follow their pattern of psychological projection, that means they're on the verge of intensifying their genocides. And I don't think black people, we dismissing, yeah, they talking all this crazy, it ain't real. And we're so satisfied with the fact that we can dismiss and debunk their claims of genocide that we don't look at the other side of that.
People don't even know the average, they don't even understand what genocide is. People think genocide is just what happened to the Indians. You just come and just mow people down, just kill them. But they don't realize that it's also that subtle stuff. And I got that from you, Diallo. Like, it's the lack also. You know what I mean? It's what you don't.
But black people, we have been under a campaign of genocide. When from the start of the slavery, black population was on a steady increase from slavery, right? In relationship to white folks. After the emancipation, and black people were no longer chattel slave. We were no longer property and assets for the white elites. Our numbers leveled off. And now if black people were allowed to naturally progress as a population, we would have been equal to or greater than the population of whites in this country. But white people have suppressed our population since the end of slavery. They have suppressed the population of black people. They have maintained our number. We had higher reproductive rates. We had a larger population in many of the regions of the country. And we had a continent of over 1 billion Africans that were ready and willing to migrate here. They suppressed our reproduction, our ability to feed, house, clothe ourselves, and get secure gainful income and employment. They murdered us, they incarcerated us, and they suppressed the migration of Africans from the Caribbean, South America, and Africa, while encouraging the migration of Europeans, Italy. I mean, even now, Poland, they would go wherever they could find people with white skin, they would invite them. There are, outside of Poland, the highest population of Polish people in the world is here in Chicago. You know, we have Ukrainian Village, we got Greek Town. Every white nationality and ethnicity has a community here. People only think of Chinatown because it's a tourist destination. But they have aggressively barred and suppressed the importation of Africans. You know, actually, which is weird because he's a fucking ADOS now. Dr. Claude Anderson wrote about this and condemned this practice of suppressing African migration in his book, Black Labor, White Wealth, and how black people were harmed culturally, socially, and economically and politically. The suppression of black migration has harmed black people in this country. And black migration is an asset for Africans of the diaspora and Africans descended from slavery.
Yeah, like they was stiff arming that boat off Haiti. That they were stiff arming that boat from Haiti, or them people from Haiti, right. A decade or so ago. You know, they wouldn't let them in. Yeah, so yeah, I can definitely see they've been maintaining our numbers. But some people seem to think that we got more than what's being reported too.
Yeah, that's another myth.
Do you believe that? Like, we probably closer to 70 million. Somebody said we probably closer to 70 million than 40 million. But
I don't know. I'm not sure where they would get that from. And it's a pretty, when you're dealing with numbers of that scale.
Because we don't do the census stuff, so they probably just figure like, you know, everybody not, you know, it's probably not a true.
Yeah, and I fill out the census. A lot of black people, you know, a lot of black radicals, you know, be really doing shit they think is so radical, not voting, not filling out their census. Like, it's not like, okay.
Hey, I ain't gonna lie. I didn't fill my census out, boy. They sweated the shit out of me too, boy. They sent me a letter every goddamn
Why did you fill out your census form?
Because I didn't want them to know I was here. Now, go on and educate me, brother. Because, you know.
Do you think do you have a cell phone? Do you have a cell phone?
Yeah, I got, yeah, for sure.
At the beginning of the year, did you get a W-2 form like I did?
Yeah, I got a W-2.
But you don't want them to know you here.
That's what I'm saying. They already know I'm here.
Okay.
But, okay, brother, go on, you know what I'm saying? Give me the...
I'm just saying, in the next decade, when's the next census count? 2030? In 5 years, just fill it out for me, man. Fill out your census form, black folks. Register to vote. Vote in your local, regional, and national elections. Come on, black folks. We've been here the longest and we understand it the least. You can still do revolution. You can still be a revolutionary after filling out the census card. And if you truly have to go underground, I respect you not filling that shit out. But if you're not in active, open conflict at the moment, But let's see. Yeah, fill it out, man. Or give it to me. I'll fill it out on your behalf. And the census is about allocation of resources. It's not about trying to find you, because they got whole other ways to do that. But I digress.
Facts.
Anyway, so white folks, when we hear white folks in the White House, when you hear the president talking about white genocide, that means they're going to intensify and expand their own genocide. When you hear white folks talk about we're under attack, we're being invaded, that means they're about to attack and invade somebody. When they say they're waging a war on terror, that means they're going to commit atrocities and terror. You see how that works? When they started a war on drugs, drug consumption expanded and the quality of drugs improved. But we don't decipher white folks anymore. It's so weird how often. And here's another weird thing about genocide, right? Genocide didn't exist until what, 1948? Did you know that?
I mean, I can understand why, but it wasn't happening. But so, what did they classify? What happened before that? How did they classify? I said,
what?
Yeah, I understand why that term.
They call that exploration and civilization. They call that exploration and civilization. Oh, genocide. No, it was 1944. Genocide didn't happen and didn't exist until 1944. Everything that happened before that with the natives, with the Arawaks, Kalanagos, with the Twa and the Inuits and the Aboriginal people. You know what happened in the Congo. What happened throughout Africa? I mean, name
that wasn't genocide.
That was none of that. That was exploration and settling. Y'all call them settlers. They came to settle. Those places were in upheaval, and they came to settle and explore and civilize.
So it wasn't genocide
didn't happen until 1944. So that was right after World War II. Right. And do you know who the first man ever convicted of genocide is?
The black dude you was telling me about, man. That's what I was saying.
Can you believe in the world history book, the very first person ever convicted of the crime of genocide was an African man, Jean-Paul Akayesu.
That's him. That's him.
Yes. That's the genocider. That is the very first person ever tried and convicted of the crime of genocide, right? And there have been several other people who've been tried and convicted of genocide, right? 90% of all the people who've ever been tried and convicted of genocide are non-white. Right?
The living embodiment.
The living motherfucking embodiment. Right? So if you look up of all the people convicted of genocide, right? I got it right here. One Bosnian has been convicted of the crime of genocide. A black man from Equatorial Guinea, one black man from Guinea, 2 black men from Ethiopia, 1 indigenous man from Guatemala, 3 Arabs from Iraq, 3 Arabs, a Serbian, 1 Serbian, and I thought it was 34. 1 convicted, and 36 Africans have been officially accused. Well, if you add 37, 38 Africans Africans have been tried for the and accused of committing genocide well beyond. There's only been one Western European, one person from Western Europe who was ever tried for genocide, and he was found not guilty. And that was an Italian man. His name is Gorges Rigiu in 1957. And guess what? That one Italian man, he was a Rwandan immigrant with Italian fucking citizenship. So even the Western European was black. And if you know white racial politics, when you talk about a Bosnian and Serbian, they're not really white. Those are Asians. They're Mongol contaminated blood. So that's how these motherfuckers play games with us. That's how they project their crimes onto us. Like you said, we become the living embodiment. And when black people, when they first came out, would say there's a crime of genocide and we have a convention on genocide and the UN is going to acknowledge that genocide as a crime against humanity, and we're going to hunt down and prosecute people who commit genocide. And African people were like, finally. Native Americans were like, finally. Asian people of Southeast Asia were like, finally. India had hundreds of million people slaughtered by British colonization. People starved to death. They had famines. India was producing enough food to feed the world. And they were packing it onto ships. And the people who were loading the ships in India to feed Europe, the British East India Company, was starving these people to death with food rotting on docks to be shipped to Europe. And Western Europeans were like, we're going to define what genocide is, and we're going to enforce genocide. That's why you see that video of that cop that OD'd on fentanyl in the police station bathroom. He went out.
I think so.
He went out and arrested this dude. And when he arrested the dude, he patted him down. It's like, oh, you got drugs. What is this? And the drug, the addict was like, oh, that's heroin. And so the cop stole his drugs, locked him up, and because he thought it was heroin, but it was actually fentanyl, he went and got high and OD'd on fentanyl. That's how they do. They out enforcing genocide. This guy's out enforcing drug laws as a full-blown addict himself. He's a drug addict out locking people up for drugs. And these genociders are out here convicting and locking people up for genocide. Yeah, see,
bro, we done had enough of this shit here, man. I don't know how we take this shit.
It's convenient, but and Slavs want desperately to be white. But even Hitler wrote in Mein Kampf that Slavs were worse than Hebrews. So that's white folks, the myth of white unity. And anyway, when white folks start saying we're being subjected to genocide while carrying out dozens of genocides across the globe, that is essentially a declaration of war.
Yeah, bro, I could see it in real time, man, because it's this lady I follow, and she always posts how these people get in her DM, because she'll post something and they'll get in her DM and get the calling all kind of races and get to saying all kind of racist shit. And then when she exposes them, these motherfuckers don't beat nobody. They be convicted felons, just the lowest, but they get online and then act just as high and mighty as they can be. And then it's like you see these people in public, then they smile in your face. They ain't got nothing to say.
I tell you this. The Europeans have asserted several times throughout history that our freedom is their extinction from their point of view.
From a parasitic point of view, I can understand that.
When we start to assert our humanity, claim our resources, and exercise power, even if we say we forgive you for all the past crimes, we want no retribution. We want to be partners. We want to be brothers. We want to be co-citizens. they have always defined that as a threat. They have always defined it as a threat. So how do you engage and seek equality with people who see your elevation as their degradation? Implacable foe, eternal bitter enemy. And we act like we don't want to acknowledge this because that will lead us to some conclusions that we don't want to conclude.
No, bro, I'm up to speed. I'm right on the front. I'm right at the front door, man. Like, I can see. I see it for what it is, for real.
All right, so anybody, let's move to Q&A and then we can wrap it up. Like I said, I don't think this show is going to be able to broadcast long. There's a lot more that could be said about the myth of white genocide. But when white people call genocide, that's actually a declaration of war.
We got to do a part 2 then, man. You know what I'm saying? Do a series.
Yes.
Do a series because, man, we are in that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey, but what's up, all my chat friends? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, before Hitler carried out his final solution, if you read the literature of the time, if you read his biography, Hitler identified the Jews as the greatest threat to Germany and the greatest threat to Western culture. They'll always call you a threat before. The black man is the greatest threat in America. And the black man is targeted with the most violence than any other demographic in this nation. You know, they said Iraq was a threat. Vietnam was a threat. They had this thing saying Vietnam, there's this domino theory. And if Vietnam if Vietnam becomes a socialist or communist country, then all of Southeast Asia will become communist. And if Southeast Asia become communist, Africa will become communist. If Africa become communist, Latin America will become communist. And if Latin America become communist, they will invade the United States. And so the atrocities, killing over 1 million Vietnamese people because they were a threat. Everybody they attack, they invade. The Native Americans, we're going west. I just want to get in my little cattle, in my little car, and take my cattle, take my sheep, and go out and make me a little homestead, put a little stake in the ground, and have my little house on the prairie. All I want to do is just have a little plot of land to grow a little food and pray to my God. And these savage, godless red men. So everybody that they are a threat to, they defined as a threat. Everybody, without exception, going back to the Roman Empire. The Romans were literally going to these villages and slaughtering everybody and like, oh, they're barbarian. They're savage, cannibal barbarians. And then hacking everybody up and taking their rich, taking their land and taking them back to Rome as slaves. Their culture of conquest always defined their victims as being the great threat. Transgender, they're attacking transgender people. Transgenders are coming after our children. Transgender want to mutilate our children. And now they're literally defining transgender people out of existence legally. Trump just wrote a law. There's Christian authoritarianism, a Christian theocracy being entrenched in the United States. At the same time, Christians, even ignorant black Christians, are out here like, oh, there's so much discrimination against Christians. There's so much suppression of my faith. And every time it never stops. So when white folks cry genocide, that means they're on the verge of intensifying their atrocities against people they've been committing genocide against. And I know I'm repeating myself, but I don't think we've been around these people. We've been in this country the longest and we understand it the least.
No, it kind of sounds a lot like when these cops pull over black people and they tell them to stop resisting when they're not resisting. Mm-hmm. It's like it gives them cover to shoot.
Yeah.
It's fucking annoying, man.
Did you catch any questions, comments, or criticisms?
No, I didn't see any questions. Well, yes, I did. I saw somebody.
I didn't catch any. If you have any questions,
I think it says SPC Gold says, huh?
I
I see one say SPC Ghost says, "How can we build and sustain our own myth of creation?" That was the first question I came across.
This came up in the Gorillas book. You recommended that. It hasn't left my mind. Well, I'm a secularist, but the way you build and sustain it is there must be material supports for the myth. So if we have a myth of the nobility of the African, you have to the root of the word propaganda is to propagate. And repetition is the essence of propaganda. So you have to repeat the myth. You have to embed the myths in all areas of human relations, in your education, in your folklore, in your music, in your fashion, in your intimate relationships, and in your social political relationship. The myth has to inundate every element of existence. And then the myth has to deliver some level of relief, support, and benefit to the people you feed the myth to. Now, I'm not a big fan of myths, but I recognize the value of myths. I recognize them as a secularist, as an atheist, but that's how you do it. You got to commit to it. And yes, Gorilla is a magnificent book. That's a good catch. Oh, here's another one. What's up, Seer? How do Black radical leaders get away from conceptualization of genocide against Black people in the United States? Recharge genocide. I think Black people got away from it because it was misdefined. Black folks, we kind of defined genocide as extermination campaigns. And because we define genocide as extermination campaigns, and then you cry genocide, 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 and you look at it as they try to wipe us out. And you see that we're still here. We here. We don't die, we multiply. So I think the number one way that genocide, the charge, the cry, the alert and awareness of genocide was suppressed because we didn't define and we don't comprehend genocide. And then it was fed by this rhetoric around victim mentality. We're our own worst enemies. We killing each other. So the short answer is we don't comprehend what genocide is. The strategy, the tactics, and the ultimate outcome and evidence of genocide, we don't comprehend it. And many of our researchers sold us out. There are many Black researchers, having, a spouse who's in academics, having been in academia myself for some time. The researchers only research what they can get funding and acknowledgement for. And studying genocide against African people is not an acceptable or fundable topic. So our researchers and our scholars sold us out. And then the propaganda apparatus of the West obfuscated and distorted the definition and characteristics of genocide. And how do we reawaken? Subscribe to the Class Con channel and begin to understand and then propagate, share that understanding and the facts of what genocide is. Genocide is not even defined as simply a process of extermination. Genocide can be carried out to limit numbers, to take land. There are several outcomes and objectives embedded in genocide campaigns that aren't necessarily campaigns of extermination like in Nazi Germany or the Armenian genocide.
Hey Diallo, I got a question, man, because I've been looking at some stuff, and it's basically saying that our bourgeoisie class deliberately sold us out. Like this wasn't I didn't know what I was doing. This just happened by chance. We just ended up here because, we was trying to get free, and this is how I ended up with all this money in my pocket.
Right.
Like
that
was a deliberate, huh?
That's a lie. They didn't do it by accident. It was conscious. It was deliberate. It was on purpose. But I would have to challenge one thing you said.
Okay, because
you
go ahead.
No, what were you saying?
No, because like it's like, okay, when you hear these people talk, you know, they make it seem like this is the best pathway forward, right? And you know, they have all these reasons. So I just was starting to think, along with everything I've been hearing, like, yeah, these people did this shit on purpose, man. Like, they knew exactly.
You're right, 100%. Yes, that shit was on purpose. Ice Cube didn't accidentally write them raps. Ice Cube sat down and wrote raps about the murder of black men, about the dehumanizing of African women. You ever listen to that song, A Bitch is a Bitch? You ever heard I Ain't the One?
Oh, for sure.
Life ain't nothing but bitches and money. Here's a murder rap to keep you dancing. And he knew it. And Ice Cube was around when I was around. He knew about Boogie Down Productions. He knew about Poor Righteous Teachers. He knew about the Jungle Brothers and the Native Tongue family. He knew what progressive, positive, and uplifting hip hop was. And he went in interviews and attacked it. He said, you say Africa, I stare at you. We ain't got it too good in America. In his own songs, he drove a wedge between Africans on the continent and their struggles and suffering, and Africans in the United States suffering. And he would make fun of, oh, I ain't wearing no black medallions. I ain't wearing that shit. So Ice Cube didn't just make gangster rap. He made a deliberate attack at the coexisting black revolutionary consciousness movement. And then when his puppet masters chewed him up and pimped him and spit him out, he tried to go conscious. And then he fucked up conscious. And a lot of black people that were into conscious hip hop will come to me like, you heard America's Most? He's working with the Bomb Squad. He went and worked with the producers of Public Enemy. And then he linked up with Khalid Muhammad and had Khalid Muhammad all over his album. And put out that song Cave Bitch and tried to be pro-black. And then when he saw that the money was drying up, when the opportunities was drying up, he was like, fuck that shit. I'm doing Lynch Mob. I'm doing Slaughterhouse. I'm going back to the gangster shit because I did this. I tried to pretend that I was going to be. That's why, selling bean pies and saying eyes in the same sentence. So Ice Cube is a good example of a successful black man who we're supposed to look up to and aspire to. And now he's writing legislation for black people with the Contract on America and playing footsies with Trumps and the other Zionists. But that's a whole thing, man. I wish you had me.
Hold on, Diallo. Hold on, though. Who can you attribute that same characteristic to in the 60s when it first made its like with Nixon or whatever first introduced?
Eldridge Cleaver, Black Panther, who became a Mormon and denounced the Panthers. Sellout. So yeah, they were all over. Karinga Claus, the founder of Kwanzaa, another sellout who sold out on purpose and purposely. So,
man, bro, these motherfuckers is walking around us, man, like they ain't did shit.
We, the Minister Louis Farrakhan, we walk around. We still hold these people up. We still lighting them red, black, and green candles and putting Karinga claws on in our stockings. We still, every time Farrakhan call y'all to Washington, y'all go march and stand there and listen to a bunch of inane speeches. We the ones that allow these people to still be relevant in our struggles and in our communities. These demagogues and these confessed traitors. They'll stand before us and confess, and we'll deny they confessed. I played tapes of Farrakhan admitting his role in the death of Malcolm, gloating and bragging about the death of Malcolm. And I had a brother from the nation like, he didn't say it. I'm like, here it is. Oh, that ain't what he meant. We love traitors. We don't give any incentive to our people to be loyal to us because we hold traitors up as loyal. We show as much love and support to traitors. How many black men out here, oh, Cosby, weeping for Cosby, free Diddy, free R. Kelly. We love traitors. You and I could flip tomorrow. You and I could go into some manosphere bullshit tomorrow. And we would have 10 times the reach. 10 times the accolades.
We'll be checking the bag,
that goofy ass Dr. Fubar shit. And get on the Breakfast Club. You know, we don't incentivize loyalty. We don't incentivize and reward respect. We got people out here talking about free Tory Lanez. That ain't never said free, Mumia. Yeah. The Trump administration is targeting Joanne Chesimard, as they call her, our sister Assata Shakur. And they got that demagogue, that cult of personality in Burkina Faso talking about don't touch him. But I don't hear people calling out for Pete O'Neill and true revolutionaries, Pete O'Neill. We play around, man. We play games, but I guess that's the struggle. That's why they call it a struggle. That's why we call it a struggle. But I do have issue with something you said. You said our elites, right?
Well, I understand semantics. They're not ours, but yeah.
Right. They ain't ours. That's a possessive. They said ours is to indicate possession. Do they belong to us? Do they work for us? Do we pay them, clothe them, house them, protect them? They not our elites. They not ours. You can say the black elites, the black bourgeoisie, but don't say our elites. You know who our elites are? People who fight for us. Skip Coon is ours. Skip Coon is our hip hop. He's our rapper. He's our artist. Beyonce ain't our artist. She's an artist. You know, Ice Cube is not our artist. He's not one of our rappers. Skip Coon is one of our artists. I think we just, the language is so important, and people get on me about banging about semantics. We can say the black bourgeoisie, the black elites, never say our elites. You know, Trump could say our elites. He had Snoop Doggy Dogg doing a jig on stage for his crypto inauguration concert. Snoop Doggy Dogg belongs to Martha Stewart. He ain't one of our artists. He didn't speak for us, rap for us, represent us in any way. And they ain't just, I would even say, you know, now let me not say this. I've stepped on enough toes tonight. Let's end this show before I say something I don't have to say.
Well, somebody wanted you to touch on the Larry Hoover commutation. If you could say a word or two about that. Personally,
I don't believe in indeterminate sentence. I'm a prison abolitionist, so free all prisoners. I don't think incarceration is any way to remedy the ills of society, nor do I think incarceration is any way to bring justice to victims or to bring a rehabilitation to the people who commit crimes. So yes, free Larry and free all of our incarcerated brothers and sisters. And we need a more humane, civil, and just way to address crimes and people who harm others. So as a prison abolitionist, I agree with that. All the other shit they put in, I just had a brother I know. I've known him for years. He's down. I ain't gonna say his name because he likes to be messy. But this brother was like, oh, if Larry Hoover came on, he'd organize Chicago, and Chicago has one of the biggest black populations. First of all, I've been here, and there's been a few OGs who've been released on the street, and they either go into obscurity or they are killed. The hierarchical structures of authority and respect and protocols have been disintegrated in Chicago street and gang culture.
Yeah, it's been gone for 30 years, man.
Right. So it's some figure coming from the street, coming from incarceration and bringing any remedy or any wisdom or bringing any relief to the streets of Chicago. It ain't going to happen. So that's the thing. But also, we can't say that the gangs are assets of the CIA. The gangs are assets of the federal government. They are counter-revolutionary. They are anti-black. So these black gangs, I don't have all this fondness. Like Farrakhan said, they are not our frontline soldiers, as Farrakhan falsely attributed them fighting for us. Gangs are government assets. And I don't support gang truce or gang radicalization. I support gang abolition. And until we get to the point where we are organized and conscious enough to advocate and push for gang abolition, I push for gang amnesty. And gang amnesty is basically allowing our young people who have been seduced into those anti-African and antisocial formations, allow them to walk away intact without consequences. So we need to start organizing for gang amnesty and gang abolition and stop pushing this nonsense revolutionary but gangster. Revolution is anti-gangster and gangsterism is anti-revolutionary. But I say free Larry Hoover. I don't think he takes any precedent over any other brother or sister unjustly incarcerated. Diablo, ouch. Can you give us more of an example of white pathology and their characteristics? What are some people who see right? That's a great question, but I think that will take us another hour. So I'm going to write this question down. Why you take? I was writing the question down. Oh, thank you. What are something that people can see right? I think that's I think that deserves this breaking down white pathology and giving specific examples. I think this is a whole show unto itself. So I'm not even going to get into that. But he didn't have to call me Diablo to get my intention.
Yeah.
All right, now you can take it. All right, I think that's it. I think we have to wrap it up. I was hoping to get out of here by 8.
All right, well, let's
you can
do
read
it then, man.
And you know, Sister Marimba Ani, she's in her 80s and she's still with us. She just put out a new book. And Sheun Kuti wrote the foreword to that book. And he keeps rubbing that in my face because he wants me to be jealous. But I'm not jealous that he wrote the foreword. I admire, I respect. I think that's a wonderful thing. But he's not happy with my accolades. I say, wow, that's really great. You know, that's wonderful. Pan-African connection. He was like, no, you're jealous. And I'm like, but I'm not. So, okay, I'll say, yeah, I'm jealous. I hate that he was able to write the foreword to Marimba Ani's book. But she got a new book. Send her a message. Send her a love. She's still with us.
Hey, that's a great honor, man.
Yeah, but you got to act jealous.
Yeah, but you got to be jealous about that. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah, okay. When I see black people, now I don't root for everybody black. I'm not like that sister. I can't remember her name. My wife loves her. What's that girl's name? She did Insecure.
Yes, I just saw her too. She found the motherfucker too.
What's her name? I can't say that.
Ray.
Issa Rae. I'm not like her. I don't root for everybody black. I only root for conscious revolutionary Pan-African. I only root for black people who make a positive contribution to the just aspirations of African people. So I don't feel jealous. I feel inspired when other revolutionary conscious Pan-African people do good. Whatever that good may be. But I guess we'll wrap I guess. Where's Geechee?
Look, bro, your guess just as good as mine, man.
All these no call, no show. I think he's done with us. What did you do to offend him? Because before you came on board, he was here.
Man, look here, bro.
And then you show up and he gone. What you do to that man?
Hey, look here, man. I ain't done nothing to Geechee. So Geechee my man. So I'll fall back. Goddammit, you know what I'm saying? Because we'll take that 2/3 of EYL, you know what I'm saying? So if we can't
I prefer you over Geechee.
Oh my God.
I want to sit across from Geechee, all that hair standing on his head and twisty and curly hair. I'd rather have a brother that you know that has the same struggle as me.
Oh my God. Hey, no, I like when you're Geechee on camera.
Maybe
Man.
they told
Y'all
him he
have a
couldn't
good
be in both
dialogue, man.
places. Maybe they said he's been on BLM because he ain't been here. He ain't told me nothing. I'm starting
Well,
to
you know,
take
he
it as
do his show.
fact.
He do his show, Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win, and then I think he was over
I'm
today.
starting to take it. I mean, okay.
He was there today. He was there on BLM today. So, you know.
And you didn't go in the comments?
I'm always there. You know, I'm a moderator, so I'm always there. But you know, I work, so I only really get a chance to get there around 8, from like 8 to 8:15. So I just
Whatever,
really, you know, step in and step
right,
out.
maybe
But
he has
you know, yeah, man.
Maybe
Hey, look, bro.
Okay, yeah.
Y'all is what I consume and what I've been consuming for the past.
That's cold blooded because
few
I
years,
know
bro,
Geechee. I've been working with Geechee long before anybody over there. I knew him before all them did, but I guess.
Oh, messing up again, man. Come on with this bullshit.
I don't
all
get
right,
mad
y'all.
when the little birdie
Peace.
flies to net. It ain't even no dignified exit. All right, y'all. Thanks for like, share, subscribe. Let me put the thing on the thing. Support that. Oh, I tell you, I'm developing a new show. He left. Damn, James. Is he? See how they do me? Anyway, I'm developing a new show. It's basically dealing with the culture of video games, science fiction, comic books, sci-fi, futurism from a Pan-African perspective. I don't know what we're going to call it yet. I think I have a name for it. Let me just write it down, but I ain't going to say it. I think I have a name for it. So, if you're interested in that, if you're versed on video game culture, comic book culture, and all that, and you have a Pan-African analysis and perspective, holla at me. Because I already got one very good brother, a comic book illustrator, artist, and novelist who's going to be hosting that. And so we're building that show. It's really what I want to do. I'd rather just leave all the rest of this politics shit and talk comic books and video games and sci-fi, fantasy, movies, all that shit from a Pan-African perspective, futurism, and speculative history also. I think that's going to be a part of the speculative history. So that's a new show coming to African World Order. We already got one brother who's going to host it, but we're looking for some co-hosts and support. So holla at me if you're interested in that. Slide into my DMs. Don't lie, James. Now I'm gonna call you out. People started talking greasy about Geechee and you ran. Don't be scared of Geechee, man. If he got any issues, just tell him to holler at me. Don't run. He was like, they talking bad about Geechee and BLM. Feet don't fail me now. You ran. Okay, Geechee, if you see this, James behaved himself. He didn't say nothing bad about you. It's all me. Whatever you did to scare James, don't leave him alone. Just holler at me. Because I saw it. He just went, I was like, where Geechee at? He had BLM, and James was like, oh, cut. Anyway, I appreciate y'all. Shout out to Skip. Y'all get on Skip, say drop that album. When that album gonna drop? We're gonna call him from now until his album comes out. Call him Skip Ocean. like he won't drop an album leaving his fans hungry. Skip Ocean until the album drop. That's his new name. We'll start calling him Skip Coon when that Radio Free Jafrica drops. All right? That's a fair deal. Until then, y'all, peace. Like, share, subscribe. Do all the algorithmic stuff to help us grow. We were growing exponentially, and then our growth kind of leveled off, and we ain't getting no new subscribers. Man, share this, man. Get the word out, man. Lost people, losing people, man.